Hannah had spent years crafting a life of quiet stability. Her downtown Toronto condo, small but elegantly furnished, was her sanctuary, free from chaos, free from uncertainty. After her divorce, she had promised herself that peace would be her priority. No more unexpected twists, no more emotional upheaval. Life had settled into a predictable rhythm. Early morning walks along the waterfront, coffee from her favorite corner cafe, long hours at the design firm where she had built a respectable career, and evenings spent curled up with a book, a glass of wine, and the comforting hum of city life below. But all of that changed the night she opened her door to find Daniel standing there. It had been years since she had last seen him, long enough for the sharp edges of their past to dull but not disappear. He looked different, yet somehow exactly the same. His tailored coat was dusted with snow, his hair slightly tousled, as if he had run his hands through it too many times. But what unsettled her the most was the expression in his eyes. There was something raw there, something vulnerable. "I need a place to stay," he said, his voice quieter than she remembered. Hannah hesitated. Every instinct told her to close the door, to walk away, to protect the peace she had worked so hard to build. But something in the way he stood, shoulders slightly slumped, his usual confidence fractured, made her pause. Against her better judgment, she stepped aside and let him in. From the moment he crossed the threshold, the air in her home shifted. The space that had once been entirely her own now carried the weight of an unresolved past. Daniel moved through her condo with a strange familiarity, setting his worn leather bag by the couch, slipping off his shoes like he had done 100 times before. But this wasn't before. They weren't the same people they had once been. That first night was restless. Hannah lay awake, staring at the ceiling, aware of every small sound coming from the living room. His breathing, the rustle of fabric as he shifted on the couch, the occasional creak of the floorboards. She told herself she had made a mistake, that in the morning, she would set boundaries, ask the questions she had been too shocked to ask. But deep down, she already knew the truth. Daniel's return wasn't just a temporary disruption. It was the beginning of something she wasn't ready to face. Because no matter how much time had passed, no matter how carefully she had built her new life, he still had the power to unravel it. And that terrified her more than anything. Hannah had always trusted her instincts. It was something that had guided her well through life, whether in her career, friendships, or relationships. But now, those same instincts were screaming at her, warning her that something wasn't right. At first, she tried to ignore it. She told herself she was overthinking, that the tension she felt around Daniel was just her own hesitation about letting him back into her life. After all, people deserved second chances, didn't they? But the little things started adding up. Daniel had arrived at her door claiming he had nothing left, no job, no money, no place to go. And yet, he didn't carry himself like a man who had lost everything. His clothes were always pristine, his leather shoes polished, and despite saying he was struggling, he never once seemed worried about his next meal. Then there was the watch. One evening, as he sat across from her on the couch, she caught a glimpse of it. A sleek, high-end timepiece that certainly didn't belong to someone who was broke. He noticed her staring and quickly pulled his sleeve over it. "It was a gift," he said casually. "A gift, right?" Hannah wanted to believe him. She really did. But the doubts kept creeping in, whispering that something didn't add up. The first real crack in his story appeared a week later. She had taken the afternoon off work and decided to tidy up the apartment. As she sorted through some paperwork on the dining table, she noticed one of her bank statements had been moved. She knew exactly where she had left it, but now, the envelope was slightly open, its contents shuffled out of order. Had Daniel been looking at her finances? A chill ran through her. She told herself it was probably just her imagination, that maybe she had moved it without realizing it. But the uneasy feeling stayed with her. Then came the moment that changed everything. Late one night, unable to sleep, Hannah got up to get a glass of water. As she walked past the living room, she stopped. Daniel was standing by the window, phone pressed to his ear. His voice was low, urgent. "I told you I need more time." No, she doesn't suspect anything yet. Hannah's blood turned cold. She took a silent step back, heart hammering. She doesn't suspect anything yet? Who was he talking to? And what exactly didn't she suspect? The next morning, she studied him differently. Daniel moved through the apartment with the same relaxed confidence, pouring coffee, reading the paper as if nothing had changed. But now, every action felt calculated. She noticed how he always turned his phone screen away from her, how he never truly answered questions about what he had been doing before he showed up at her door. And then, there was the money. He never seemed to pay for anything. Not once. Not when she picked up groceries. Not when they ordered takeout. He never offered to help with bills. And yet, he never seemed worried about money either. It didn't make sense. Hannah knew she needed answers. That afternoon, when Daniel left for a walk, she did something she had never imagined herself doing. She went through his bag. Her hands trembled as she unzipped it. Inside were neatly folded clothes, a bottle of expensive cologne, and a leather wallet. She hesitated before opening it. Inside, she found several bank cards. Not expired. Not canceled. Active. She pulled out a receipt tucked into one of the card slots and unfolded it. A restaurant bill. Over $200. From a luxury steakhouse. The date? 3 nights before he had shown up at her door, claiming to have nothing. Hannah's breath caught. It was all a lie. Her fingers curled around the receipt as her mind raced. Had he played her from the start? What was he really doing here? The sound of the front door unlocking jolted her back to the moment. She quickly shoved everything back into his bag and stepped away just as Daniel walked in. He looked at her, then at the bag. For a split second, she saw something flicker across his face. Suspicion. "Everything okay?" he asked, setting his coat down. Hannah forced a smile, her heart pounding. "Yeah," she said smoothly. "Everything's fine." But it wasn't, because now she knew the truth. Daniel wasn't here because he had nowhere else to go. He was here for a reason, and she was going to find out exactly what it was. Hannah barely slept that night. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, her mind spinning with possibilities. The receipt in Daniel's wallet, the phone call in the middle of the night, the way he always turned his screen away, it all painted a picture she didn't want to see. But now, she couldn't ignore it. Morning arrived too soon. She went through the motions of her routine, coffee, emails, a half-hearted attempt at breakfast, but everything felt off. Daniel moved through the apartment with that same effortless ease, but to her, it all seemed rehearsed now. Every casual smile, every kind gesture, had it all been calculated? She wasn't going to wait for more clues. She needed answers, and she was going to get them. That evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Hannah finally spoke. "You lied to me," she said, standing in the kitchen as Daniel poured himself a drink. He stilled for half a second, just long enough for her to catch it, before he turned to face her. "What?" "I found the receipt," she said, her voice unwavering. "The one from the steakhouse. 3 days before you showed up at my door, claiming to have lost everything." Something flickered in his expression, a fracture in the mask. "Hannah, don't," she cut him off. "Just tell me the truth, Daniel. No more excuses. No more games." Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Finally, he set his glass down with deliberate care. "I never meant to lie to you," he said quietly. "Not about the things that mattered." She let out a hollow laugh. "You mean like pretending to be broke?" Daniel sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I didn't pretend. Not exactly." "Then explain it to me," she shot back. "Because from where I'm standing, you played me." His jaw tightened. "I wasn't trying to play you, Hannah. He exhaled sharply, as if the words were physically painful. "I didn't want you to see me the way everyone else does." Her stomach twisted. "And how is that?" He hesitated. Then, with a bitter smile, he said, like a man who only has his money to offer. Hannah's breath caught. "You think I would have turned you away if I knew you still had money?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel looked at her, something raw in his eyes. "I think you would have kept me at arm's length," he admitted. "Like you did before." The words hit harder than she expected, because the truth was, he wasn't entirely wrong. She had always been wary of wealth, of the way it changed people, the way it created barriers. When she and Daniel were together before, she had struggled with the imbalance. He had come from privilege, while she had built her life from the ground up. It had been one of the cracks in their marriage, the thing that made her question whether they had ever truly understood each other. But this wasn't just about money. This was about trust, and he had broken that. Hannah took a deep breath. "Who were you talking to last night?" Daniel's brow furrowed. "What?" She folded her arms. "I heard you on the phone. She doesn't suspect anything yet. Those were your exact words." His face paled. "That wasn't about you," he said quickly. "Then who was it about?" Daniel hesitated, and in that moment, She knew. Whatever the truth was, it was bigger than she had imagined. Finally, he spoke. I got involved in something I shouldn't have, he admitted. Some business deals, they went south. I had to step away for a while. Hannah's pulse quickened. Step away from what exactly? Daniel exhaled, looking down at his hands as if debating how much to tell her. When he finally met her gaze again, the mask was gone. There are people looking for me, he said, his voice quiet but heavy, and not the kind you can reason with. A chill ran down her spine. Are you saying you're in danger? He nodded slowly. Hannah's heart pounded. She had thought she was uncovering a lie about money, about pride, but this was something else entirely. Why didn't you tell me? She asked, her voice laced with frustration. Because I didn't want to drag you into it, he admitted. I thought if I could lay low, if I could figure things out without them finding me, I could walk away clean. She stared at him, trying to process the weight of what he was saying. And now, he swallowed hard. Now, I'm not sure if I can. Hannah ran a hand through her hair, trying to steady herself. Are they watching you? Watching us? Daniel hesitated just long enough to make her stomach drop. I don't know, he admitted, but I think they might be close. Her blood ran cold. All this time, she had been worried about lies and deception. She hadn't even considered that she might actually be in danger. She took a slow, shaky breath. So what do we do? Daniel looked at her, his expression unreadable. We leave. She blinked. What? If I stay here, they'll find me, he said. And if they find me, they'll find you too. Hannah shook her head. I'm not just going to pack up my life and run. If you stay, you're at risk. His voice was firm, urgent. I won't let that happen. She clenched her fists. And whose fault is that? Daniel flinched, but didn't argue. He knew. Hannah exhaled sharply, her mind racing. Every instinct screamed at her to walk away, to let him deal with the mess he had created. But the terrifying truth was she still cared. Despite everything, the lies, the betrayal, she couldn't turn off the part of her that still saw the man she had once loved. And that scared her more than anything. Finally, she looked at him. If I do this, if I leave with you, no more lies. No more secrets. Daniel nodded. No more. She studied him, searching for any trace of deception. Then, with a deep breath, she made her choice. All right, she said. Let's go. And with that, everything changed. The highway stretched endlessly before them, the darkened landscape blurring into the night. The silence in the car was thick, heavier than the secret Daniel had carried for so long. Hannah sat in the passenger seat, arms folded, staring out at the road ahead. She hadn't spoken much since they left the city. She was processing, trying to reconcile the man she once loved with the man who had lied to her. Daniel gripped the steering wheel tightly, his knuckles turning white. He could feel the weight of her anger, her confusion. But more than anything, he could feel the distance between them growing, and that terrified him more than the men chasing him. Finally, he broke the silence. I owe you the truth, he said, his voice quieter than the hum of the engine. Hannah didn't turn to look at him. You think? He sighed, glancing at her briefly before turning his eyes back to the road. I never meant to drag you into this, Hannah. I swear. She let out a bitter laugh. And yet, here we are. Daniel swallowed hard. I was reckless, he admitted. I made a deal with the wrong people. I thought I could control it, thought I was smarter than them. But I wasn't. For the first time, she turned to face him, her eyes searching his. What kind of deal? He hesitated, but there was no point in holding back now. Investment fraud, he confessed. Or at least, that's what they called it. I was working with a group that promised quick returns. I trusted the wrong people, and when things went south, I lost control. His jaw tightened, and when I tried to back out, they made it clear that wasn't an option. Hannah's breath caught. Daniel, are you telling me that you? I didn't steal anything, he said quickly, but I was part of it, even if I didn't realize how deep it went at first. He exhaled sharply. And now, they want me to fix it, or they want me gone. She shook her head in disbelief. So that's why you showed up at my door? Because you were hiding? Yes. The simplicity of his answer made her stomach turn. She looked back out the window, trying to steady her thoughts. So what now? Daniel hesitated before answering. I have one chance to make this right. There's evidence, documents, records, that prove who's really behind it. If I can get that into the right hands, maybe I can clear my name. Hannah scoffed. And what happens if you can't? Daniel didn't answer. He didn't have to. She turned back to him, frustration bubbling over. You should have told me from the start, Daniel. You had no right to drag me into this without giving me a choice. His grip on the wheel tightened. I know, he admitted. I was scared. I didn't want you to look at me the way you're looking at me now. Hannah let out a slow breath. And how exactly am I looking at you? Like you don't know if you can ever trust me again. The words sat between them, raw and painful. She didn't respond because, for the first time, she wasn't sure she had an answer. Finally, after a long pause, she whispered, "Do you even know what you're asking of me?" Daniel glanced at her, his expression vulnerable in a way she had never seen before. "I know I don't deserve it, Hannah," he said softly, "but I need you to believe in me. Just one more time." Her heart clenched. She had spent so long running from him, from the pain of their past. And yet, despite everything, here she was, once again standing on the edge of a choice that could change everything. Hannah inhaled deeply, the cold night air filling her lungs. This wasn't just about trust anymore. It was about whether she was willing to take a leap of faith one last time. And as she stared at the road ahead, she realized she already knew the answer. She just wasn't ready to say it out loud. The small lakeside town was still and quiet in the early morning light, the air crisp with the scent of pine and damp earth. Hannah sat on the wooden dock, her arms wrapped around her knees as she stared out at the water. The lake was smooth, undisturbed, reflecting the pale pinks and golds of the rising sun. It was the kind of morning that used to bring her peace. But now, her mind was anything but calm. Behind her, she could hear the slow, deliberate footsteps of Daniel approaching. He had given her space the night before, sensing that she needed time. But they both knew time wouldn't change the inevitable. There was still a choice to be made. He lowered himself onto the dock beside her, leaving a careful distance between them. Couldn't sleep? She shook her head. Too much to think about. Daniel let out a breath, rubbing his palms together as if trying to find warmth. "I don't blame you," he said. "I've given you every reason to walk away." Hannah turned to look at him, really look at him. The man beside her wasn't the same one she had once loved so effortlessly. The years had changed him, hardened him in some ways, softened him in others. His confidence was still there, but the sharp edges of arrogance had been worn down. There was humility in his eyes now, a quiet vulnerability that hadn't been there before. She thought back to everything that had happened, the lies, the betrayal, the fear that had gripped her heart when she realized just how deep his trouble ran. But beyond all of that, she also saw the man who had tried to make it right, the man who had risked everything to protect her, the man who, despite all his flaws, had always chosen her, even when he had no right to. "You lied to me, Daniel," she said finally, her voice steady but filled with the weight of everything they had been through. "And not just about the money. You lied about who you were, about what you were running from. You made a choice for me without ever asking if I wanted to be part of it." Daniel nodded, accepting her words. "I did. And yet," she continued, her fingers tracing the edge of the dock, "you also came back. You could have run, could have disappeared, but you didn't." He turned to face her, his expression unreadable. "Because I couldn't. Not from you." Hannah exhaled slowly, watching as a single bird skimmed across the water's surface. "I used to think love was supposed to be perfect," she admitted. "That if it was right, it would be easy. That the person you were meant to be with would never let you down." She shook her head, almost laughing at her own naivety. "But life isn't like that, is it?" Daniel was quiet for a long moment before answering. "No," he said softly. "It's not." She looked back at him, her gaze searching. "Then tell me, Daniel, what does love mean to you?" He didn't hesitate. "It means choosing someone, even when it's not easy, even when they've seen the worst parts of you." He ran a hand through his hair, his voice low and rough with emotion. "It means standing in front of them, flaws and all, and hoping, praying, that they still see something worth holding on to." Hannah's chest tightened. She had spent so long believing that love was supposed to be without cracks, without disappointments. But maybe real love wasn't about perfection. Maybe it was about choosing each other despite the imperfections. She let out a slow breath, her heart hammering in her chest. "You broke my trust, Daniel. I know. And trust doesn't come back overnight." His throat bobbed as he swallowed. "I know that too." Hannah turned back to the water, her mind still battling with the weight of everything. She could walk away. She could protect herself from more hurt, from the possibility that one day he might let her down again. Or she could stay. She could choose him, not because he was perfect, but because despite everything, she still loved him. The thought terrified her, but maybe that was the point. Finally, she reached out, her fingers brushing lightly against his. It was a small touch, tentative and uncertain, but it was enough. Daniel's breath caught. He didn't move, didn't push. He simply let her come to him. Hannah closed her eyes for a brief moment before speaking, her voice quiet but resolute. "I don't know how this works," she admitted. "I don't know if I can just forget everything that's happened." "You don't have to," Daniel said gently. "We'll figure it out. Together." She looked at him then, really looked at him, and saw the truth in his words. Love wasn't about never making mistakes. It was about what you did after them. And in that moment, as the sun rose higher in the sky, Hannah made her choice. She chose him.